Hi, Adam here. This is the first of a series of interviews we're going to conduct with various people from around the world of hospitality technology. Today, I'm interviewing Christian Moiset. Christian worked for several years as the founder of a small chain of quick service restaurants called the Hummous Brothers. After that, he went on to found Tenzo, analytics software for restaurants whose clients include Nando's, designed to help you anticipate your needs based on data from inside your restaurant and out. This is a socially distanced interview, which happened by phone, so we don't have visuals for you today, but it's a great interview, and I'm excited to listen. Sweet. So perhaps the best place to start is with you. You were originally from your kind of your first big career achievement was that you started or helped start the Hummous Brothers.
That's right. So do you want me to give you a bit of like a intro, like career path so far kind of thing? Is that
the CV? Yeah,
the CV. Let's do it. Yeah. So originally half French, half English. Moved to the UK to study computer science. I studied computer science with this guy called Ronan, and this two people in particular, Ronan and Adam. And Ronan I set up the Hummous Brothers with. So we did computer science together, and then we both switched to economics in the final year. And I remember being in the lecture with him on the first lecture, and we're like, what the hell have we done? Like, we've never done economics in our life, and now we're in the third year. What the hell is going on? But we worked a lot together that year. And we thought that after uni, we should set something up together. And whenever we'd meet up, we'd eat hummus with whatever was in the fridge, basically, because, you know, as students, you didn't really want to like be cooking your own meals. You just wanted to make something nice and easy. Yeah. And we thought, like, will other people be interested in eating hummus? And so we tried in markets around London. And when we saw that it got traction, we got our first site, which was on Wardour Street in Soho. And subsequently built that over the following, 5 to 10 years. Yeah. Grew to 6 locations. We published a cookbook. We were present in lots of canteens. And really one thing that was really driving me crazy when I was running that business is how hard it was. Generally, restaurant tech was just not good, honestly. Yeah. At that point, it was just like we had a freaking fax machine in the back room in 2005 to receive orders from people. I was like, what are we doing? Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Deliveroo arrived, and they kind of introduced tablets into restaurants. And then you had like POSs like Lightspeed that also started arriving, and people started like, I became aware, like, 2 things became apparent. One is there was an explosion of data. There was more and more data restaurants was collect. And 2 was that it was like tech was like the restaurant industry was behind really in terms of tech. And I was really struggling with getting information in the hands of our GMs to help them make better decisions, because these guys were making decisions, ordering how much staff to have. Yeah. Like just generally running the place, right? They were making the decisions. And the way we were trying to solve that was by giving them an Excel where I'd spent some time downloading data from lots of different sources, the POS, the labor schedule, the inventory tool, your social media platforms, etc., and getting it into their hands. And the problem was, A, it was very slow. B, there was always mistakes because you copied over the wrong column. And C, opening an Excel on a mobile is not exactly a pleasant experience. And so what would happen is that these guys would not freaking engage with, not for any of their fault, but they would just, so they'd overorder, underorder. It was just a mess. And Adam, who I'd studied computer science with, he'd done a much more sensible career path after uni. He'd gone to a mobile gaming studio. Then he ended up at like McKinsey doing a lot of big data and analytics. Yeah. We basically came together and were like, we can solve this problem. We can build a platform to pull the data from all the different sources, make it really easy for GMs to engage with it. And that will help restaurants operate more efficiently, waste less food, be more successful. And that was really like kind of the genesis of Tenzo.
It's a bit of an unusual way around to do it, right? Because the story that I hear more commonly is that somebody sets out, they do the sensible career choice, they go to McKinsey, and then they get into sort of middle age and they go, actually, what I want is to start a restaurant, and I don't want to do the 9 to 8 working in a consultancy, whatever. I want to do something real, and it feels like yours is almost the kind of other way around. Not that starting is real.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, it's interesting because I think it's like, if you take Adam and my career, it's kind of like we've started at the other extremes and we're kind of like moving the other way. You know, he's done the kind of consulting gig, and I've done the restaurant, and I'm like kind of okay, that seen huge opportunity of what you can do to help these guys, and he's like, okay, now I want to do something that's more interesting, and we've met now, and we've come together to solve this. So yeah, I think you're right. There's a little bit of that, of like we're traveling along that spectrum that people had. One going one way, the other going the other way.
And what year was the kind of the start of Tenzo?
2016 was when we started.
Okay.
I mean, we'd been speaking. I mean, Adam, I was the best man at his wedding. He was the best man at my wedding. We'd been in touch. Like we were close friends, and we were speaking a lot. And both of us, I think he wanted to leave McKinsey, and like I had done at Hummous Brothers. I felt like it was going to be more of the same, honestly, to Hummous. But we'd done six, we'd done all these canteens. Like it was kind of we were trying to do was to launch a hummus brand in supermarkets, but that was cornered by big brands, so it was very difficult to get into that. And this was an opportunity. We were both like kind of okay, we're ready to take our next step in our career, and we felt that our strengths really complemented each other very nicely.
When you were started in Hummous Brothers, restaurants were kind of behind in technology terms. Are they still behind? Are they always going to be behind other industries, do you think? Like the eternal laggard?
It's interesting. I've asked myself this question many times. I do think that they were behind, and I think there's in a lot of ways they've made tremendous progress, and I think more people. I think there's a significant shift that's happening in the restaurant industry. Well, there's two. There's one that's been going on for the last 10 years or 15 years, which is you've got a younger. You've got a younger group of people that are now leading them. Okay, so your typical restaurateur 20-30 years ago was someone who was maybe in their like 50s that was doing like things a lot by pen and paper, that wasn't really tech savvy, right? And there were some exceptions to that, McDonald's being one of them, for example. But typically that was how. And really, if you look at what's happened now, there's people in their 20s, 30s that are now leading a lot of these restaurants that have grown up with technology in a lot of ways, who expect good technology. So there's that kind of major shift, and that is driving. And these people are expecting better technology, and that's starting to happen. The other one, which I think is it's COVID related, is that we've been starting to go more towards delivery by its nature, because you're buying typically online or by phone, but mostly online. You can now start optimizing and advertising and thinking about how you're going to do that whole sales cycle. That can use a lot more data to improve it, and that has clearly been accelerated majorly by COVID. And I think that will continue to be in place post-COVID. It's not suddenly going to revert back and there won't be as much delivery, right? There's been a significant bump. and so and that I think is the that digitalization of the restaurant is happening. And I think there's actually a very interesting report by BCG that shows that restaurant groups that are more digitally advanced are outperforming by 2x in terms of EBITDA the ones that aren't. So I think restaurants strategically, these massive restaurant groups are now understanding that this is not a nice to have anymore. This is the future. And if you want to be performing well in this market, you have to embrace technology. I'm speaking to customers now who are thinking about setting up a restaurant. The first thing they think about now is really, okay, what's my tech going to look like? It's not one of those decisions of like, oh, I've said everything. Oh yeah, I need to think about tech. They're really putting that right at the front because they understand that's how they're going to engage with their customers now. So I think they are catching up, and I hope soon they will be leading the way in many ways.
Do you think the challenges for somebody starting out and starting a hospitality business have changed since you were trying to start Hummous Brothers?
Yes, big time. And I think it's like, we're speaking at the end of 2020
yes.
here. The set of challenges are on a different, like different level now. If I just cast my mind back to when I set up Hummous Brothers, we went to look for supplies, we went to look for a location, we went to look for our staff, we went to look for, we built all these different pieces up. And I remember, at that time, everyone talked location. Like, you need location will basically determine whether you thrive or you die, more than a lot of other elements. Okay, and I think, for example, if you think now, look at how many dark kitchens there are. Location doesn't matter anymore for these dark. I mean, to a certain extent, they can't be up in the middle of Scotland if they're hoping to deliver to London. But you get the point, is that it doesn't matter. I remember Soho, we were on Wardour Street. There was a you could be one street across and it's a different ball game. You wouldn't get like a tenth of the footfall that you would be getting on Wardour Street. So I think the challenges in terms of like finding the right location have completely changed because like no one knows if people will be in offices or not post-pandemic. So the location element, I think, has fallen down the list in a big way. And things that were much easier maybe 5 to 10 years ago, things like finding great people that were willing to work the long hours and the hard hours in restaurants was very easy. Like, this was a pre-Brexit world. There was a hell of a lot of immigration into the UK of people who wanted to work hard, and restaurants was an easy thing. And we were able to get a lot of staff very easily. Now I think it's extremely hard. So that's changed a lot. And I think also back at the beginning, it didn't matter what tech you used, honestly. It really didn't. Like, as long as you had a till, like it didn't matter as much. Right now, to me, it's the one thing that's jumped right up to the top. And in a way, it used to be location. To me now, it's tech. Because if you don't have the right tech and they can't find you online, if you don't have the right tech to look at the data to see what like insights you need to get, if you don't have the right tech to like make sure that your team knows where they're working and what they're doing, etc., don't have the right tech to know what you're going to make next week, these things are like you will fail without them, right? So it's really that to me has changed majorly.
When you say because obviously choosing the right tech is much more important now. I sort of sometimes think that with, a lot of a restaurateur will come to Storkit and then you're kind of bamboozled with all of these fantastic technological solutions and you kind of don't know what to choose or what to pick. When you say tech makes the difference between, success and failure, what could you describe in kind of more detail how and what kind of part of tech you'd focus on that would really move the needle, that would make the difference between success and failure in a restaurant?
Yes. So restaurants has always been a margin game and I think is become even more challenging in that way, where clearly, during this pandemic in particular, like revenue is down majorly, like some have to close entirely, but it is a you have to be conscious of how much you're making, how much you're spending. You need to be on it like regularly. I remember when we ran Hummous Brothers, the number of times we were at the end of the month surprised to say, we were like, yeah, we think we're on it this month. Our cost of labor as a percentage of sales is going to be like good. We'll get there. We're there. It's going to be. And then you get to the end of the month, the accounts come in and you're like, well, we thought we were at 28% and we're at 35. What happened, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly you go from being EBITDA positive to EBITDA negative, right? And you're just like, so one to me is understanding that in order, like, you need to think about what tools you're going to put in place to be able to get great data out. What does that mean? You need to have a POS that has good APIs so that you can get that data out easily, and preferably APIs that are open, so you're not having like to pay fees to get the data out of it. You need to have tools like your labor planner and your inventory tool that also have APIs, so you can pull out of that. So there's a whole piece where you need to think about this infrastructure to make sure you're getting the most out of your data, okay? Mm-hmm. And then using tools like Tenzo to be able to visualize it, alert you, get understanding of that. So I think there is one piece around that, and really thinking about it, not each tool independently, but understanding that they all speak to each other, right? Yeah. And then obviously you have, especially in this market, you need to make it very easy for people not only to find you, but to be able to order from you. What does that mean? That means that I need to be able to, if I need to be present on Deliveroo and Uber Eats, for example, but I also need to be giving my own app, because Uber Eats and Deliveroo charge very high fees. If I have my own app and I'm able to like drive people to that, I can run promotions that I'm in control of. I can give better discounts and still make more money than if I do it through Uber Eats and Deliveroo. So use Uber Eats and Deliveroo to generate leads, but like monetize them through your platform. The other thing is, people are walking off the street. They might, as they walk down the street, they might want to be placing that order so to be ready when they come and collect, especially in this time where people don't want to be indoors because of COVID. But if you make it easy for them to order from you using like a pre-order app or a click and collect app, and so thinking about these different channels and being like, how do I make it very easy for people to find me on those channels and very easy for them to order on it? Like, so thinking about Google Places, thinking about TripAdvisor, thinking about social media, where are they going to find me and how do I make it easy for them to order? So that's like really the customer piece. And then finally, there's kind of the your marketing dimension, if for a better word, which is really thinking about collecting data through your Wi-Fi, thinking about how you're going to do ads on Facebook that are geotagged or Google, thinking about what CRM you're going to be if people are booking ahead or ordering, or also just saying that they're going to book a table ahead, thinking about how you're going to collect that data. And I think those are the major pieces that people need to think about when they set up a restaurant. And these are complex. There's a lot of solutions out there, and it requires people to think about it. This is why I'm saying tech has become so central to this.
Yeah. Does it require like skilled labor? Do you think restaurants need to hire a marketing manager now?
That's a very, very good question. And the problem with that is that these things, these people that are expert at these things don't come cheap, right? And restaurants, as we've said just before, there's a margin element to it, and I think there's a lot you can do now with really good SaaS products. Honestly, that there's a lot that you can, that it has become very easy to run ads on Facebook and to think about how to geotag them and think about how you advertise to the right people. Same with Google. These companies have made it very easy for you to spend money with them, right? Let's be very clear on that. And I think, obviously a good marketing manager will add tremendous value. But maybe that's once you've got to a certain scale that you're adding those kind of people. I think also, if you're thinking about your infrastructure, I think there's a lot of people in the ecosystem that actually can give you very good advice as to how to set it up, right? You guys at StoreKit, there's if people call Tenzo, for example, and if you didn't have a labor schedule, if you don't have a POS, we'll be able to advise you. Obviously it's ones that we integrate with, but those are typically ones that are quite modern and people talk positively about them. So, you can get advice from the market quite easily. And there are very good solutions that are out of the box now in a lot of ways. So in a way, it's become easier because these tools are becoming more and more kind of standard, if I can use that word. It's become harder because it's much more important than it used to be. So making a mistake on it could be costly.
For sure. When you're talking to Tenzo customers and you're advising them on how to use the Tenzo solution and how to think about reporting more generally, is there something about the way that you should think about your reporting that you find restaurateurs regularly kind of miss or get wrong, or are likely to kind of learn over the course of first starting to do or implement serious reporting?
Yeah, so are you saying, like, are there like some metrics they might not be looking at, and that they don't, because they don't realize maybe the value that those metrics could be, for example?
Yeah, so metrics that should be areas of focus, or kind of ways of thinking about it, mental models that you think have been really helpful, or just mistakes that you see people make over and over.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of three areas on that. I think there's, first of all, and this is not just for restaurants, this is for the world at large. We live in a world where it's very easy to be overwhelmed by the amount of data, right? Mm-hmm. Information is available, right? It's like knowing what information is important to look at, or what is it valuable, it's where to focus, right? Like, the problem is not finding the information, it's knowing which one you need to look at. And the example what I always encourage our customers to do is look, especially for your GMs in your restaurant, think about the 2, 3, 4 KPIs they should be looking at, that if they optimize those, you will have a good outcome. So for example, that might be, what's my cost of labor as a percentage of sale? What is my wastage as a percentage of sales? What are my average reviews over the past 5 weeks, average score? Because those, by putting just those 3 numbers, for example, and I'm not saying that those are the 3 you should do, there'll be different businesses need different numbers, but those 3, then you're saying to them, yes, I want you to optimize labor. Yes, I want you to optimize how much you're putting, how much, making sure you're not wasting too much. And yes, I care that people that are coming in are getting good service, right? Those might be your 3 big areas. And you could communicate someone 15 numbers to look at those 3 areas, and that person would be totally overwhelmed. Or you could just say, you know what, I'm going to reduce it down to 3, and you just focus on the 3. Is it perfect? No, but you will get more results, is what we see. So one is really, really thinking about less is more, okay? Yeah. The second area is really thinking about the process around thinking about the week to come. Okay, like honestly, in a restaurant, and I've spoken, like I'll always remember there was one GM at Nando's, they call them patrals at Nando's, that told me this a few years ago, and he said, if I have planned my week well, i.e., if I've forecasted accurately, and if I've and therefore put the right number of people and thought about how much to order in, it will be an easy week. I won't be stressed. I'll have the right number of people. I won't be running off my feet. I won't have my bosses shouting at me because I've put too much labor in it. I'm just going to have a good week. Planning that week is super important. And it's very hard for someone to plan that week, because like, how much are you going to make tomorrow, right? Like, who knows, right? Like, there are tools you can use to help you do that, and in particular, like the whole process around forecasting and thinking about how busy you're going to be and how much staff you're going to need because of that is a really important process to put in place. And you can use very simple tools of just like, hey, let's take a 4-week average and let's just use that as it's very basic, but you know what, it's better than just having them guess, right? Because they'll be like, well, I have no idea, I'll just put whatever number I think, right? And that obviously, tools like Tenzo that will help use, machine learning to predict that will get you 30 to 70% more accuracy. But, putting that process is important. So it's kind of like the second thing I would say is, so less is more. Right process around forecasting is very important to think. And we often see that mistake done. And, there's stories like, I remember a presentation that that Nando's gave me 2 or 3 years ago, where they'd gone around the world and taken pictures of napkins where people were scribbling on the napkin how many chickens to put on the grill, because the GM was just like making it up as he was going along because he didn't have a tool, right? So he was scribbling it on his napkin. And then I think the third part is really around, like, so looking at data of often what the mistake is that is being made is looking at the data in too small a data set. And what I mean by that is, for example, looking at what you did in labor last week and say, oh, I overspent on Tuesday, next week I need to reduce it. Or even saying, oh, I've overspent Monday and Tuesday, I need to reduce it for Thursday and Saturday, because like that I'll make up my percentage, and then you get screwed twice because you had too much at the beginning, too little, and you're losing out on sales, etc. So often people react by just looking at too small a data set. And what we often encourage them to do is to say, okay, look at what you've done in terms of labor over the last 4 weeks, or last 8 weeks, because then if you're seeing that every Tuesday for the last 8 weeks you've overspent, then you can comfortably say, I should reduce it, right? So it's really the size of that data set you're looking at to really make sure that you're making the right decision there.
What are some ways that if you were choosing your software from behind a kind of veil of ignorance, you'd never heard of Tenzo before, what would be some things that you would focus on that would help you identify whether software was good or bad? And make a decision there?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things I would look at. But one is, does the software recognize that they're not going to do everything for you? Okay, i.e., does the software realize that they're very likely that they'll need to partner with a third party in order to like do what you want to do? So for example, with you guys Toolkit, you understand that you need to put those deliveries, those orders into the POS, right? The POS then understands that they need to put their sales into the labor scheduler and put them into Tenzo, for example. So understanding that you're having solutions that understand that they're not going to be a jack of all trades because they'll just be mediocre at everything, and saying, yes, we have open APIs, and yes, we connect, and these are partners that we work with, etc. So I think that's the first thing I would look at, because I would be worried if someone told me, yeah, don't worry, we do it all. I'd be like, well, it's probably not going to be very good. The second thing is really support. And as a restaurateur, the thing that would drive me crazy was just how bad the customer support in all these tech solutions were. Like, it was freaking annoying. And one of our core values now at Tenzo is being customer obsessed. And really, we're obsessed about making our customers successful, because I know how bad it was when I was on the other side, and you're stressed because you've got a queue to the door. You've got the chef that didn't show up on time and that's trying to catch up. You've got a delivery that's arriving in the middle of lunch, and like all this is going on. And then your till goes down, or whatever it is, or a piece of tech is not working. And you're like, the last thing you want is having someone that makes your life difficult in terms of trying to solve it, right? So really figuring out from the tech, the customer service point of view, how good they are. So those are like the two main things I'd look at. And there's easy ways of doing that, right? You pick up the phone and ask, hey, I want a couple of references. Send me a couple of restaurateurs that are using you. Tell me how they feel. And you speak to them. You'll see soon, very quickly, if the solution works for them or not.
For sure. So COVID-19.
What? Never heard of that. What is that?
the pandemic. Do you think that there are going to be lasting ways that it changes the insides of restaurants?
For sure. 100%. Like everything else around the world, it will be lasting. There will be lasting effects. If we speak about restaurants specifically, I think there'll be many effects. I mean, I'm speaking to some of our customers who are building new sites, and they're, for example, pre-pandemic did not do deliveries, and now they're thinking about their new sites having delivery hatches so that the drivers don't come into the restaurant, they can pick it up from the site. They literally were not doing deliveries. Now they're building restaurants to make sure that the deliveries is a core piece of it. So I think that there's changes like that. So the delivery component is there, and it is going to be staying, honestly. I think there's the location element that's an interesting one, right? So I'm speaking to some customers that had sites in the city, and they're just like, I have no idea if this site is worth anything. If the skyscraper I was next to stays empty now, or is only full at 20% because people are working 1 out of 5 days or 2 out of 5 days instead of the 5 out of 5 days. That's a huge amount. We're seeing Pret's like strategically, they have to look at their business from scratch, because they had they had offices, and then they had transport hubs. Both of them are like, will be transformed for a long time. Then they're not going to go back. Offices, there's no way you have people going in 5 days a week at the level we had. Like, most businesses will go back and say, yeah, people in the office 2 days a week, right? That's 40% of what you used to get, right? That's a crazy amount for like Pret, the impact, right? So that there's kind of that. How does that impact your location? How does that impact your how you think about how you're doing you're getting in touch with your customer? I think the third piece is the tech. That's basically like, Nando's, for example, this year is going to spend £10 million more in tech in the UK, right? That's a freaking huge number extra. That will stay because people realize that because they need to get better insight, because they need to get better forecasting, because they need to get more in touch with their customer, because they need to do delivery, whatever it is, there's going to be reasons. Tech is enabling these businesses. That will stay forever. And then finally, I think there's an element, and this is the one that's more up for like discussion, I guess. After September 11th, basically, airports changed forever, right?
Yeah.
You had your bag scan, etc. Now, you could argue that the terrorist threat has gone up, has gone down. Like, that has stayed, okay? And I think something that's as deep as this, in terms of wearing masks, in terms of like, self-isolating, etc., some of these, they're not all going to disappear. There is going to be threats of other, it might not be pandemics, but like other diseases with global warming and with more connectivity amongst humans. The risk is going up, whether we like it or not. And I think a lot of what people think, but once we have the vaccine, it's all over, it's all back to normal. I think there's some bits that won't, and that I don't think anyone really knows what it's going to be like. But that will be lasting changes, I think, across a number of aspects of our life.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I guess in a way, the one that jumped out to me there was the idea of the death of the city as we know it, because you have, it's obviously true to say there will not be the same, density, throughput thresholds that there was before. But just how low it goes is kind of an open question, right? And if you had the whole world going, well, I'm going to work from home forever, and therefore I'm going to move house. I don't want to live in Brent, which is where I'm currently sat. I would like to live in the Bahamas, and I'm off. That obviously changes everything, right? And there's very little anyone can do about it.
Big time. By the way, I think someone made a very good point about this, is that cities that are well run, it will get rewarded, because you're right. You could be doing your job from Brent, from Scotland, from many places, right? And places that are, one, more pleasant to live in, but B, better run, will win ultimately, because like the job element of it is not the only element people are gonna is going to be not as important. It's a bit like how location for restaurants went from the top to bottom. It's kind of the same for people's jobs, right?
Yes. In an uncertain world, choose Tenzo. Okay, I've gotten through all my questions, I think. So I think I've got all of the material I need. Thank you very much. It's been really interesting.
No problem.
And that was Christian. If you enjoyed the interview, we plan to do a lot more with people like him. So please click like on this video and subscribe to our channel more generally. Thank you very much.